Welcome to Illumination, a podcast dedicated to all things health, healing, and personal development. A space dedicated to sharing empowering knowledge and essential tools and practices to support you in your spiritual development. I'm your host, Kate Hodge, a certified holistic life coach, master energy healer, and teacher. Today's episode is an interview with Derek Januszewski, author and founder of Pachamama Sanctuary in New Hampshire. Derek has an incredible story that he's going to share with us, and we're going to talk about trauma, addiction, plant medicine, and recovery. So you're not going to want to miss this.
My name is Derek Januszewski. I'm the founding pastor of Pachamama Sanctuary in New Hampshire. So just to get to know how I got to the place that I am, I like to kind of tell my story a little bit, and hopefully some of you can relate. I was born into trauma. My mom almost died giving birth to me. My father wasn't around. There was a big snowstorm. He wasn't able to get there. For the first couple of years, my life was probably a bit chaotic because my mother was an alcoholic and my father was an addict, and he was on the road a lot as a traveling salesman. So my first flashbulb moment that I remember in my life was being pulled into a bath and sexually abused by a woman at about the age of 2 or 3. I don't remember the whole scenario, but it definitely was inappropriate and it was abuse. So from there, my first memories start to come in around 5 or 6 when my mom was an alcoholic. My father was gone. He was out running with his addiction. And I had a babysitter that was sexually abusing me 3 or 4 times a week. Actually, and this is kind of important, she would give me what I know now to be ibuprofen. And they were these little red round pills, and she told me that they were drugs to make me forget things and so that she could do things to me. So this went on for like 5 years. So when she was there, that was going on. When I didn't have a babysitter, my mom was either home or not. If she was home, it was chaos. Either there was parties or she was belligerent, drunk, and beating me up, or she was trying to like make up for all the bad things that she did. And I never knew what was what as a kid, looking back on it. Then I think I was just like in this world where we're just trying to be alive, and I thought, everything was cool. It was normal for me. I also grew up in a town called West Springfield, Massachusetts. West Springfield is a rough neighborhood. It's almost entirely Puerto Rican, so I did not fit in. And my first time feeling anxiety was around 7 or 8. I remember the way that I felt. I did something and I was cringing over it for like hours, and I had this like pressure on my chest. I didn't know what it was. And I think I even asked my mom about it, and she's like, everything's fine, and didn't really address it. I don't know that it could have been addressed at that point anyway. So from there, we left at about the age of 10 from West Springfield to move to Jacksonville, Florida, a particularly rough part of Jacksonville, Florida called Arlington, where I was the only white kid in school. There was one Hispanic kid, me, and then entirely Black school. So I also got beat up a lot there. I got beat up a ton in West Springfield by multiple people a couple of times a week. Same kind of thing happened in Jacksonville, Florida. And so I sort of dove into schoolwork because I didn't know what else to do. Coincidentally, I ended up with another babysitter there that sexually abused me, and a scoutmaster that sexually abused me. So I have a ton of sexual abuse in my background. I think looking back on it and just considering why that would happen, I think that like energetically, when we come into this world, we come with some tasks that we need to complete, and something drew all of that into me, because like being sexually abused is not uncommon. It's actually more common to have been sexually abused, but to have five separate sexual abusers a little odd. You know what I mean? It doesn't really make sense unless it's some kind of energy that I was pulling in because of whatever I'm supposed to do on this planet, I guess. So from there, my mom moved around a little bit, found myself in kind of a rich area of Florida. Didn't fit in there either because we were like in the corner of this rich area where there was a trailer park, and that's where we lived, and everybody else was there. My mom's alcoholism during that time really started to progress. She was beating me up more. And she locked me out on Christmas Eve. One time I had to wake up with another family Christmas morning. A bunch of stuff. She drove herself into a tree and told me it was because she thought that then my life would be better without her. So nothing really changed until my dad got sober, or he stopped drinking. And so he brought me up to Newburyport, Massachusetts, which is a very rich Irish Catholic alcoholic town. There's about 120, 130 in my graduating class. Didn't exactly fit in there. I found a couple of rejects to kind of hang around with, but I wasn't even cool enough to like get, even if I went to a keg party, they'd tell me to leave. Like, I was trying to make friends, but the reality is that I didn't know how to relate to people. I didn't know how to relate to my mom because she was an alcoholic. I didn't know how to relate to my dad because he had abandoned me. I didn't know how to relate to the people around me because I went from community to community to community where I just didn't feel like I fit in. And throughout that whole time, that anxiety was always there, right? From that first time, it was always kind of constantly there. So graduated high school with great grades because it was nothing else I could do. And the first time that I actually drank and got drunk was the night before I went to college, where I drank to excess, threw up, slept with my friends, my best friend's girlfriend, and left Newburyport on fire, basically. So got to college and flunked out after a year because that's where I really started drinking. Went to Florida again, moved back with my mom down in Florida, got a job at a golf resort, started to become obsessive there a little bit with golf and other things. Met a girl who introduced me to cocaine. That lasted 3 or 4 months. It was chaotic. It was not good. It was not healthy. I was already stealing to get cocaine. That happened very fast. Broke things off with her, and then I met a woman who was a fantastic woman. We got married, had 3 kids, and I started to obsessively look into and research real estate, which I started buying real estate. Back then in the early 2000s, it was really easy. If you have good credit, you can just sign your name and say, I make $300,000 a year, even though I'm unemployed. It doesn't matter. They're just handing out houses like candy. So I bought 12 of them. I just became obsessive about it, and made a lot of money. But eventually that obsessiveness caught up to me, and I started obsessively building a network marketing company, playing poker, where I became a professional poker player. That's how I supported my family for a few years, of 2.5 years. And then I became obsessed with video games. So I had 3 computers set up. This was in the mid 2000s, like 2003, 4, 5. I had 3 computers. One was 4 tables of poker, one was my work, and one was a video game. And I was in my office for about 100 hours a week. So that broke the connection with my family. My obsessiveness, I couldn't get out of it. I was in there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't leave until like 11 o'clock at night most days. And so I became sort of workaholic, and poker was paying the bills, and I was flying back and forth to Vegas to play in these tournaments and things like that, and I did well. But the connection with my family was broken. It got toxic, and I moved out. And the day that I moved out, a friend of mine came over with an ounce of cocaine, threw it on the table, and said, "This will make you feel better." And it did. So that started my run of my real deep addiction. It started off slowly, and it got worse and worse and worse. There's a lot of chaos. I don't really want to relive it, but there was undercover cops that came to my house, people getting arrested. I got arrested a whole bunch for possession of cocaine, drunk driving, all kinds of stuff, right? That was all in 2007. That was when I was like out of my mind. Um, and so I backed off, got a little bit of treatment, and started to go about my life. Got a couple of decent jobs, but I would still use every once in a while, until it spiraled out of control, starting with alcohol, going into cocaine. I was going to tons of concerts. I was living a very gluttonous and compulsive life. I didn't have control of my actions, and so um, my last relationship ended around 2014. Since then, I haven't really done anything with that because I said I'm going to take 2 years and get better, and that 2 years is now turned into 8 years. I'm still healing. It's a lot of stuff, you know. But after that, I spiraled again with the cocaine, and on May, if you can see that date, it's May 29th, 2016, is tattooed on myself. That was a day that I was supposed to bring my son to the airport because he was going to fly to Spain for 7 weeks after he raised money. He was 16 years old. He raised enough money to spend 6 weeks in Spain, and I was getting high and I forgot what day it was. So that was the day that I was like, something has to be done. So tried to get sober with AA and all different kinds of ways. And at that point, it was too gripping for me. And one day I heard Joe Rogan talk about ayahuasca as a potential for, healing addiction. And so, of course, I went to Soul Quest in Florida, and what amazing place! Like, a really, really amazing place. I know that there's mixed reviews, we'll say, but I can tell you that leadership there and the decisions that are based on, let's just say, profit, are not in the hearts of the people that are holding space and caring for people. Okay, those are different. And I was welcomed with open arms, with loving people. I sat and I had 45 days of relief where I was using every day at that point, right? 45 days where I didn't even care about using. I was up on the, I went from being massively depressed to up at the beach at 5 o'clock in the morning, watching the sun come up, having coffee and reading a book. Like after one weekend, literally the Monday after retreat, that started. And for 45 days, I had relief. But I used again and went back. Again, got some relief, but I used, and then I didn't have any money at that point. I was done. I was on the verge of homelessness, which is a huge difference from going from making hundreds of thousands of dollars in real estate and a lot of money playing poker to almost homeless, right? This disease is painful and just insidious. So I was begging the church to let me come and sit for free. I needed help. I was begging for help. And one of the volunteers, who didn't make money by working there, she just got some retreats. She said, "You can have mine, but you have to," and this is what she said. Her name's Colleen, and she's still there. I love her. She said, "You have to dive headfirst into a new way of life. I'll give this to you, but you have to dive headfirst into a new way of life." Those were her words. And being an addict, I was just going to tell her whatever I wanted to tell her so I could get what I wanted. That's part of addiction, is selfishness, self-centeredness. And that was me. And so when I was there in the medicine, it was very clear that I needed to start volunteering. So I started volunteering. And over the course of the year, I became very an important part of the team, a very strong part of the team, right? I went from just being there on weekends and seeing that the buckets needed to be done and nobody else wanted to do them, so I did them, so that like the people had more important jobs didn't have to do them, to falling in love with washing buckets. And that's what I did. I washed about 10,000 buckets that year. And so I was a bucket guy, me and this one other guy, Carlos. So yeah. So Carlos wrote a beautiful poem to the bucket too. So it's really awesome. But I fell in love with washing the buckets. But I started doing a lot more. So I'd start showing up on Thursday, setting the mats, making the mats, cleaning up, preparing the space, going back and forth to the airport, picking people up, holding space. And I grew to, we get there on Thursday around lunchtime and leaving on Sunday afternoon. So they started paying me $200 a week. And, I did that for a long time. Towards the end, I was asking for a raise, and they told me that they would give it to me once they got back from vacation. And so they left for vacation, and so did my support system, and so did my purpose. And so I relapsed. They found out and fired me. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Now, they could have taken another angle and said, we're going to help him. He did so much for us. We're going to help him. But sometimes cutting people off when they're in a dark space is the right thing to do. They did it lovingly, and that's the important part, right? I can go back and say, well, I wanted this, or you should have done that. I could have done all of that, but they did it lovingly. They did. The whole team showed up. There was tears. They said, well, you got to go, but we really hope that you get better. If you need to come and sit, just come and sit. And so I decided to go up and see my son because he was going to BU at the time, and for Thanksgiving. One thing led to another, and I found myself in this place in New Hampshire randomly that they asked me to kind of hold space for them while they did a mushroom ceremony. I'm not a medicine man. I wasn't then. I'm not now. And I wasn't trying to be, but I did give them their medicine. And it was a beautiful ceremony. I thought it was going to be 4 people. 12 people showed up. It was more than I bargained for, but I had so much practice with ayahuasca. It was okay. I did a good job of holding space and helping them integrate the next day. So I drove back to Florida thinking I was going to go back to Ubering I was doing at the time, and mystery shopping, and just because I didn't want to go to a job, right? And I got a call that day that I got back in Florida from a gentleman that I met at my very first ayahuasca ceremony, and he says, "Hey, can you organize for me?" And I told him no. I didn't want to. I was afraid of the legal aspect. I didn't want to go to jail. It was so far away. And eventually he just kept asking and just kept asking. Every couple of days he would call me, "How you doing? So you ready?" And eventually I gave in. I just gave in. And I told him I would help him do one. And he says, "All right, I'll bring the medicine, I'll serve, you just gotta fill it." And I'm like, well, so it was the place where we did the mushroom ceremony. And somehow from Florida, I convinced 5 people to show up. 6 showed up, but I convinced 5 people to show up, and 1 brought a friend to come and take ayahuasca with this dude from Florida, 1,300 miles away. I don't even know how it happened. I really don't. And it was on a dusty, dirty dance floor of a dance hall from this community living place in New Hampshire. An arts and wellness center is what they call it, but it's basically a bunch of people living together communally. And they didn't have medicine before I got there, right? They did a lot of art and music. They had music festivals and stuff like that. And it was a really cool place. There was paintings all over the walls and giant murals of all kinds of cool stuff by this. And I got to give her a little plug. Hannah, who does the art there, is amazing. And I'll come back to her. I'm going to put a pin on that for a second. One thing led to, so anyways, I was embarrassed. It was all dirty and nasty, and couch cushions wrapped in sheets that we were sleeping on in the middle of this dusty room. And at the end of the weekend, I go into a meeting with the owner of the place and the guy serving medicine, thinking, okay, thank God they're not going to ask me to do that again. Because that was a disaster. Our lunch was 6 cans of Amy's soup, right? And they were both like, "This was great. You got to do it again." And so one thing led to another. One more turned into 2 more, turned into me moving to New Hampshire, turned into, by the summer, we had big ceremonies with Taita Pedro coming and Arkawa coming, and 40 people in a ceremony, 28 people in a ceremony. And I remember working a lot. I remember talking to a lot of people, but I have no idea how that happened because we had no website. I had no way of marketing. I just was, I don't even know how I found people to call. I don't know. I really don't. But we outgrew that place. And during that moment where we outgrew and we had to leave, which got a little uncomfortable at the end, but it's okay. Because I didn't know where we were going. I was stressed out. We had outgrown it, and I was worried about the place closing down. And I knew at this point that this was my dharma. This is my kuleana, my responsibility to mankind. I know this, right? Um, uh, a team of people wanted to start their own thing, and these were my best friends, and they all left, and they went to open their own thing, and it was heartbreaking. Like, it was devastating. Um, and so somehow, with my last couple dollars, again down to almost nothing, I found a place in New Hampshire. We moved there, and we went from once a month to twice a month to 3 times a month, from 15 people per ceremony to 35 people per ceremony. Beautiful outdoor tent, bringing in, Type the Pedro again, and all these amazing medicine carriers that came through. That's not my path. I'm not. I mean, it may be in the future, but I don't see it. Right now, I know what my task is. It's to bring the medicine carriers together with the people who need it, and to facilitate that. That's an important job, and I don't think that I could carry all of that and then also go into ceremony clear. Like, I don't see how that's possible. Um, so we grew up, built up, built up, built up, and then eventually I found myself, running a company, and I've never run a team. I've never managed a team before. I've never run a company before. I don't know how to do accounting. I don't know how to, I don't know the legal stuff. And we started getting letters from the town saying that we're not zoned, and engineers, and like it's in the marketing at this point, the website, and like how to spend properly. I had no idea how to operate a company, like no idea. And that pressure started coming down on me, to a point where I relapsed in December of 2021, totaled my car. Okay. I was up for a couple of days doing cocaine, and then I smashed my car into a tree. I woke up like in the grass, like almost had it, and then totaled my car. So I was unharmed, thank God. Definitely could have gone really badly. And so a big chunk of the team left again. I lost a whole bunch more friends, and again, heartbreak. So I picked myself up, dusted myself off, continuing on with the path, doing the next best thing, doing the next best thing. But the pressure didn't go away. I just refrained from using, and it was a nightmare inside my mind, and my anxiety that started back when I was 6 or 7 was so intense. Um, I was about to pop, and my mom died in June of 2022, and that immediately went out. Immediately started using. Um, it was a really bad relapse too. Somehow, miraculously, I sort of kept all these plates spinning until um, God gave me this beautiful, beautiful gift of an injunction from the state of New Hampshire, saying that we could not operate there anymore. And so all systems stopped. Now, because I had mismanaged everything so badly, and I overspent on things, I needed retreats to continue to be able to pay the bills, right? So I needed these last 4 retreats to happen, but they couldn't happen because if I did it, they were going to hold me in contempt of court, arrest me, and then fine me like $100,000. So I had to stop. And as soon as that happened, I went out for a few days, and I was out using for like 3 days. And this absolute angel, Suzanne, who's been around for about a year and a half now, she came to me and she says, "Hey, listen, you may or may not lose everything, but you need help, and I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you." So she is a psychologist. She's a doctor of psychology. She's got a PhD. She works with trauma, and she says, "You have severe PTSD. I can see it all over you." Um, and so that moment was, the truth is that there was so many times when I was using that I was hoping somebody would catch me, or somebody would help me, or somebody would stop me, or somebody would hold out their hand and say, I got you, like this is what you need, let's go, right? Because I was too afraid to do it myself. I was afraid to go into treatment because of what everybody would think, right? But at this point, I was suicidal. I had just destroyed the best thing that I ever made. My dharma was gone. I thought my reputation was absolutely destroyed in the community, and I was bankrupt. Like I was bankrupt because we couldn't have those retreats, and I couldn't refund their money because some of that money had been spent. And so I thought everything was toast. I was pretty sure of it, and I'm like, you know what? What's the worst thing that can happen? I can go hide for a month and rehab. And so she took me to the Granite House in New Hampshire, and the first week I was not, I wasn't having it. I didn't belong there. You know what I mean? Like all these people were druggies, and I didn't belong there. Um, and then I looked on the wall, and there was this model of addiction. It talks about the mental, physical, and emotional disease, the spiritual disease that it is. And our bodies are different. When you introduce alcohol into an addict's body, they have an allergic reaction. And that allergic reaction creates this phenomenon of overwhelming craving that is unavoidable. Once you start, once you have a drink, you cannot stop. That's why alcoholics are so afraid of that first drink, because it's a deadly disease that spirals into insanity. You don't know right from wrong, left from right, up or down. It's completely takes control of your mind. And the phenomenon of craving is a physical craving. Your body needs it right now. Alcohol turns to cocaine, turns to whatever, right? So the mental obsession where it's you're always thinking about it, and obsessive thinking is across all things, going back to when I was obsessed about poker, when I was obsessed about buying houses, when I was obsessed about network market, all this stuff, and like all of a sudden it made sense. And the only cure is a spiritual solution, and that's what I got with ayahuasca. But what I didn't have was a program of recovery to understand and to actually offload and do all this shadow work. I was relying on ayahuasca to do my shadow work for me. And then I would just go about my life. Okay, I purged that out, I'm good. And I would feel better for a couple of weeks, but like I needed to do my real shadow work, my deep shadow work. And that's what I'm doing right now, right? So from there, I was just gonna go through a month and check out. But this weird set of circumstances happened the day before I was to check out. And I ended up but choosing, because of this strange set of circumstances, to go to a continuing rehabilitation facility for another 2 months. And what I realized was that when I was running Pachamama Sanctuary myself, I had no community. I was the leader of the community, so I was part of that, but I didn't have any community for myself. The entire community was reliant on me, which meant it was a pressure situation, not an involvement situation. So I was, so the people that I was so attached to and loved so much, how could they be my friend? How could I have a friendship that was pure, right? Like, do I love them? Yes. Do they love me back? Yes. Are we friendly? Yes. But here in this community, I found a community where they don't need anything from me except for me to stay sober. I don't need anything from them except for them to stay sober and to see them at meetings and hear their stories. And when I'm having a craving, I can call them up and say, hey, listen, I'm struggling right now. What's up? Let's go have a cup of coffee. And there's no like expectation. There's no pressure. It's just purely support, mutual support, right? So that's been really beautiful. And through this experience of being in rehab, the miracles of sobriety have created a scenario where I just last week had somebody come up to me and hand me a check for, let's just say, a year's salary. And to be able to get into a new place. And then I had two more people show up and say, hey, listen, we'll sign for a loan. Let's find a new home. So I'm expecting today or tomorrow to hear from the loan officer that's organizing the loan and get a pre-approval letter. I've already picked out a place. It's beautiful. And we should be reopened by April. I didn't have anything to do with that. I didn't have anything to do with starting this or like anything in my life really. So I get to like observe it all. But yeah, like at the point of ruin multiple times, if you saw it, how the team left after I left the first place, how the team left and somehow it came together. I can only trust and believe that this is the medicine protecting itself. This is the medicine in the universe saying yes, you know. And for me to be able to be a real true leader, I got to understand how dark these shadows are. I believe very strongly that from birth until now, every single thing that I've talked about throughout that my story that I just mentioned was all preparing me to be able to be my best for other people who are coming here suffering. And boy, am I grateful I get to watch this life through these eyes, man. It's beautiful and painful and tough and human and awful and glorious all at the same time. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Okay, so I have some questions.
Sure.
Would you say that truly taking the medicine for what it is and allowing it to teach you, but also pairing it with this model of, integration and education is necessary?
Integration is 95+%. It's absolutely vital. We have an integration program, but I can't do the work for anybody. And, most people come to ayahuasca because they're called. Some people do because it's a fad, and I think that's a really bad idea. But most people come because they're called. And when they're called, this thing happens where people take the medicine and for like 3 weeks, they're balanced and it's beautiful. And there's this pink cloud and they think they got it all figured out. And then they don't change anything in their life. And then that wears off. And then they're pissed off that their life is the same, And the second time that people come, they usually have more of a lasting change in their life. And that's just because most people don't do the actual integration work, which is journaling, prayer, meditation, breath work, eating right, taking care of yourself, setting boundaries, being brave. These things to bring into your life is what's going to change. Because if you don't change anything, nothing's going to change. It doesn't matter how many times you drink ayahuasca. Like I'm an example of that. I needed to change something about my life and live the life that I was teaching other people to live, because I knew what to say, I knew what to do, I just wasn't doing it in my life. And if anybody can take anything from my story, it would be do the work, do the tough work. It's not all love and light. The shadows, when we ignore them or we try and push them aside, that's where they grow and get strong. And integration, the medicine will tell you what your homework is, so do it.
Hearing the medicine tell you what to do, then we don't listen. Do you feel like that's dangerous?
Yes. I mean, it's uncomfortable. It's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make anybody who chooses to defy the direction of the medicine that you trusted to drink uncomfortable. It's going to make you uncomfortable. I have this philosophy or this idea about how psychedelics in general, especially ayahuasca, works. When you go into a ceremony, if you accept things and you allow them, it's easier. If you resist them, the medicine just continues to put pressure on you. So that's when you go into really difficult experiences, because you're resisting, right? And so if somebody has like a dark part of them, and the medicine brings it up, and they don't explore it. It fades. The memory fades like a dream, but the medicine is still there. The information is still there. Your subconscious still knows now this thing. You can't unlearn it. Your subconscious never forgets. And so even after ceremony, for days, weeks, months, years, the medicine will continue to put pressure until that shadow that you have ignored is unavoidable. You cannot ignore it anymore. And this is where I see in the community these egos that come out. These people that are in it for accolade or for attention, or they talk about how they can't stand drama, and then they're backbiting everybody. It's the medicine subconsciously putting pressure on this thing that they're avoiding and bypassing, and trying to be all love and light. And like, if you don't post your yoga pose on Instagram when you're on the beach, do you even chakra, bro? Like, these like these people that dive into tarot and the stars and energy work as like, now I'm an expert because I'm a shaman, I drank ayahuasca 3 times, and they bypass their work. And that is, ayahuasca really puts pressure on 3 things I've noticed: sex, money, and power. And that's where you see a lot of shadows coming out. And when you approach somebody about that's bypassing that thing, they get angry because they're not ready. And the medicine is going to continue to put pressure on them until it becomes too blatantly obvious for them to ignore, like me.
My
addiction was
chills. Mm-hmm. When you say this, mm-hmm. that's my resonation for truth. Like mm-hmm. full body chills. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what you were saying about what happened for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I didn't have a program for my recovery. I didn't do my shadow work, and so my shadows came out to play hard.
What was that moment of shift for you truly in that first week where you were like, okay, I'm just going to surrender to this and try? What was that moment for you?
Yeah, it was a big aha light bulb moment when they pointed to the wall and described the model of addiction. The model of addiction, that physical craving, the mental obsession, and the spiritual loss of values. I knew I was hurting people and I couldn't stop. And everything on there, like the peculiar mental twist, the strange mental blank spots, the insanity of thinking that I can use and not hurt anybody. Everything. And it was just one little chart. And it was, I wrote it all down, and I still flip to it sometimes, and sometimes I teach it. But that moment when I looked at this chart and every word on it was very true for me, I realized, wow. So if that's that true for me, it's on the wall for a reason. So everybody in this room has something very similar that's going on. So there's got to be something here. If they know that about me, let's see what else is in this book. And so I dove into the big book, and I started doing the step work. And a lot of people don't understand what step work is. And so very briefly, the first step is admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. My life was very unmanageable, and I had no control when I took a drink. Second is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, which is a real nice way of saying you're insane, and pray. Yeah. And 3 is turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood them. I believe very strongly, for me, that God speaks through my intuition, and I intuitively knew I should not be using. Like, that's real obvious, right? But like in my gut, I knew that was wrong. I knew that a bunch of other stuff was wrong too. And I just take my will and just choose, this is what I'm going to do. And even though my intuition said, no, something else. Right. So now I live by a lot more by my intuition. I'm learning more and more how to do it. Step 4, and this is the important one. This is where the work starts. I'm going to show you something. Actually, I'll read you just a little thing, right? So this is my step 4. Oh, you can't see it. So step 4 is take fearless in searching moral inventory of ourselves. So this is where we have to look at all of our shadows very deeply. The first window in is through resentment, right? So I'm just going to flip to one randomly and let God choose. Okay. So there's a woman that I know, I'll leave her name out, that worked at Soul Quest, right? We had a falling out and I had resentments against her. And she told a bunch of lies about me, right? And so we take this resentment. I was pissed off that she lied about me, turned people against me, right? And we look at it, how was I selfish? How was I dishonest? How was I self-seeking? And how was I afraid? So I was selfish because I wanted people to have a good view of my character. I was dishonest because the lie I told myself is that she had the option to tell the truth. I'm a hypocrite because I lied about her also. Self-seeking, I wanted to be seen as a good person and not a dishonest addict. And I was afraid of abandonment, exposure, inadequacy, and dying alone. And so I've got about 700 of those. Some of them get a lot deeper. And so we look at all these resentments and we find out where was my part in it. And then we do a fear inventory and then we do a sex inventory. Step 5 is where you admit to God, yourself, and to another human being, very important, the exact nature of your wrong. So I sit here and I read through those hundreds of pages of all the bad stuff that I've done, all the bad stuff that I thought, and the way that I manipulated and lied and stole things and hurt people. And it takes about 8-10 hours of just over and over talking about all my fear and all this stuff. And then you sit with God for an hour. That's releasing all of those shadows and not letting them, bringing them into the light. That's shadow work, and it's hard. And so that's the path that it took me down. And I realized all of this bad stuff that I was thinking and doing and feeling. And I was ignoring it and trying to make it believe that I was this like super rich bro, and I knew what to say. I just wasn't doing it. I wasn't being genuine. I was being genuine in that I was sharing things that I knew were the right things to do, but I wasn't living by them. And that was putting so much pressure on me. Like, felt like, I was split between knowing what to do and also being a fraud because I wasn't doing it myself. I care about people. I really do. That has never changed. Like, I truly care about people, but like not doing the work myself, it didn't feel good. It's not right. So now I have an hour and a half morning routine every day, taking care of myself.
Doing your work, you're doing it, you're living it, you're walking it. So with that being said, with you moving forward, let's take a moment to kind of shift gears to look to the future for you. So you're about to break ground on reopening Pachamama. What's your vision for that? And then talk to me some more about like this greater vision that you have. I'm so excited. I want to hear about this.
Sure. So we're going to be open in April. We might wait until May to have our first retreat, but we'll be closed by April. We'll be cleaning up and preparing and everything. From there, we're going to spend 1 year getting it like running like a top so that I don't have to be materially involved in much of anything. I'll find another pastor. The team will fill itself out to be, like real solid. And then April of 2024, I'll start my walk. So I'm writing a book right now called Moving Forward in the Face of Fear. And it's sort of going to be a memoir from when I hit that tree to when it reopened. And then I'll flash back to my life, right? That's just the setup. That's just the prequel, right? Because the second book will be called Walking the Walk. And so I'm just going to leave in April of 2024 to walk to California from New Hampshire. And throughout it, I'll be interviewing people to, come and, walk with me for a day, an hour, a week, whatever, and just have like long form conversations. And I'm hoping to invite like indigenous people from South America, people in the recovery community, veterans, just interesting people, and hey, maybe even a celebrity or two, who knows? Like there's some celebrities. I think if I get to like Colorado and I'm still walking, by then, hopefully, I'll have penetrated some circles where, like, maybe, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers or something will come and walk with me for an hour.
You will.
Yeah. So that book is going to be an 8-chapter book in 3 parts that'll be separated into the 3 different categories of the Eightfold Path. So we'll talk about like right action, right thought, etc. And each month will be dedicated to that. So I'll invite somebody there to, like, multiple people throughout the month that know about right action, that know about right thought, that know, and and at the end of the chapter, there'll be a 2 or 3 page read where hopefully, if the book gets utilized properly, they'll be able to read this every day, like as a daily read, to reinforce this one particular part of their life, this one spiritual principle. And so it'll be like a daily practice along with how we arrive to that daily practice. And then also it'll be talking about like what's going on. In April, it might snow, you know what I mean? Like in one of the chapters, I'm going to be like crossing the Rockies and like the difficulty that's going to be there. And the book is going to unfold the way that it does. But the structure is, I want to give some people just an idea on how to improve their life and give them an actual tool to do it. From then, I think probably I'll be able to start looking at North Carolina, and I hope to have that 200-300 acre parcel because we want to grow a lot of our own food. I want to be able to have the animals to support the ecosystems there, chickens and dogs to protect the chickens, and like have this whole working thing. But the big acreage is so that we can have, like medicine gathering celebrations with no medicine, like music, yoga, and just have like these sort of like not retreats, just like festivals, or I don't know, gatherings of people, and be able to like support all of that through the sanctuary and the food and all of that. So like where people spend like $600-700 to go to a yoga retreat, and we'll have a 4-day yoga retreat for like a 4-day retreat with music and yoga and celebration and fire circles and wisdom circles from the local indigenous people and all of this stuff for like $100 or something. I don't care about, driving a sick whip and having a McMansion. I don't care about that stuff. Like, I want to be of service to the world. That's what I want. That's what I'm here for.
That's going to be huge for you. That's amazing. I'm excited for you for this to unfold and for this whole vision to happen. You're going to help so many people. How does that make you feel to know that, like, all of the things you've been through, it's not been for nothing?
I feel like every day, even in rehab, right? Even in rehab, I still woke up once the fog from the drugs left. I feel like jackpot lucky, like I won the lottery, like I won the lottery 10 times yesterday to wake up. I really, truly, in my core, love helping people. And I was doing it wrong. I was overextending myself, and I can do it a lot better with help, but like to be able to actually live this life, to be able to actually like watch this happen is, I can't even describe how I feel about it. It's so powerful. I'm just so grateful.
One thing that you would say to somebody who is struggling like you were, who is alone, who is, saying all the right things, but not necessarily walking the walk, what would you say to that person who's listening to this right now?
Ask for help. Find somebody you trust who is the right person to give you help, and ask and receive that help, because you're worth it. You are worth it. And as soon as you surrender to the reality that all of us are looking for an adult to tell us what to do, all of us, we're all walking each other home, right? This is a saying that a lot of people say. And so like, allow somebody to walk you home. If you're struggling with something, the thoughts and the actions that got you into the place that you're uncomfortable with are not going to be the thoughts and actions that are going to get you out of it. So just ask for help and receive, be vulnerable, tell people you're scared, tell people you're hurting, tell people you're suicidal. I had suicidal thoughts are not, you're not your thoughts, right? They're a thought that comes through your mind. And so you don't have to be afraid of it. If you hide it, it gets worse. If you speak it, it starts to deteriorate. A suicidal thought could be like, oh, I wish I could go to sleep and just not wake up tomorrow. I'm just tired of this life thing, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to go get it gone, right? It means I'm tired of living and I don't know what to do. Tell somebody, and then receive the help. There's help out there. There's a lot of help out there. And if you're having a problem with addiction, I think it's 211. You'll get somebody and you just have a conversation, and maybe you'll go to rehab, maybe you'll go to AA, maybe they'll hook you up with a sponsor, maybe you'll just have a conversation that'll help you. But it's a disease. It's not a defect. You're not defective. Nobody's embarrassed if they have a gallbladder that needs to come out. But the stigma and the embarrassment of addiction keeps us away from going to get that gallbladder removed. But this isn't a gallbladder, this is a spiritual malady that needs help. You are loved, you are worthy of being sober. And I know it's scary, I know it seems hard, I know it seems impossible, but there is treatment. There's 20 million people in the country that have this disease. This is not this is not a unique thing that's just, oh, you don't understand. Like, yes, people understand. And my email is derek@pachamamaretreats.org, derek@pachamamaretreats.org. If you don't want to reach out to anybody else, if you want to reach out to me, I will gladly, sit with you. It'd be my pleasure. It'd be my honor.
For that. And definitely we'll be putting up all of Derek's information for you guys and the link to this video. So just know that this is a beautiful opening to that connection. For those who are thinking about doing ayahuasca, when you talk about Pachamama, what is kind of the driving ideology or energy surrounding that for you?
There's a lot of tools, a lot of paths, infinite paths to the light is what I like to say. Maybe somebody else said that and I picked it up, I don't know, but that's the way that I see it. There's infinite paths to the light. Ayahuasca is a very powerful one. And some people get there with yoga, meditation, breath work. Some people get there with prayer. Some people get there with going to church, going to Catholic mass, and all of them are right. If they're right for you, it's right. My philosophy, ideology is a interesting word. I'm going to say philosophy, if that's okay. My philosophy around this is that it's not my job to tell you what to think. It's not my job to tell you how to think. It's my job to allow you the space safely to connect with something that is a path to the light, and for you to decide and really dig in and see what your connection with yourself, your spirit, because a little grain of God is inside of you. And that's what spirituality to me is, right? And that could look like Jesus, that could look like Buddha, that could look like Muhammad, that could look like Ganesh, that could look like, this is what I wear around my neck. I wear a cross and I wear mala with Buddha, right? There's so many beautiful teachers out there. It's not my job to tell you what your spirituality should be. It's my job to give you a space for you to connect with your own spirit and feel what's right. You feel what's right for you. This is your experience on this planet, not mine. And I'll be here to ask questions, maybe shine a flashlight down a dark hallway for you to find more questions, because questions are awesome. And that's it. That's it. It's a connection with great spirit, God, inner spirit, yourself, your inner child, higher power, Allah, whatever you want to call it. It's not really relevant to me that, your spirituality is a specific thing. It's my pleasure to watch your spirituality awaken.
This is incredible. Like what you're doing, your story, how you're taking this and how you're going to help so many people. It's not a small thing. And I really hope that you receive that fully and know that it's really important that people not only have the tools of integration, but they also have the safety physically, emotionally, and spiritually to do the work that they need to do. And I'm going to share all of Derek's information for you guys to check it out. Feel into this energy. If this feels right for you, reach out to him, connect with his team. I might even be giving you a call someday soon. So I would love to connect and chat more about that. But thank you so much for being here. It's so incredible. And I can't wait to see what unfolds for you. This is so amazing.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
If you'd like to learn more about Pachamama and exactly what they offer and do, head over to their website at www.pachamamasanctuary.org or send Derek a direct message using his email, derek@pachamamaretreats.org. We hope that you enjoyed this interview, and we would love to hear from you in the comments if you had any aha moments or anything that really resonated with you. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and share this with those that you feel will really resonate as well. Until next time.